I think they're looking for solutions. They're looking for a new way of doing things. I mean, again, people talk about billing models and how they can change there's the sort of front of house offering to their clients. But they actually do realise and get the fact that, well, you can't do that until you understand your cost base, because it has to be done at the same time. Firms doing BI, well, what are you BIing? If the data going into that is wrong, then the output's going to be wrong. So I think this is the thing that still fascinates and drives our business, is we're going right back to the currency of time, the building block of the whole firm. Everything flows from that. It's like the buy price for a retailer. You need that first, and everything follows. So that's what we do, and we can get them that. We can get them that cost base very, very quickly and easily, and by doing it in a way that it's not something that is necessarily a big burden, because the fee earners, they get this. This is there to help them. It's a tool to help them obtain their timesheet. Even in the most traditional sense, law firm sets a target of 7 hours. This technology helps them hit that. But actually, it's much more than that. If it's giving them the 10 hours that's going on, which is the cost base of the firm, that's actually much more powerful than just getting the 7 hours as well. But it depends on the firm, because not every firm necessarily thinks like that at the moment and totally gets that, or wants to challenge those norms and look at being particularly innovative. And if you look at the market, I think that's still the case. There is still a long way for this to go. There are many firms out there that aren't doing this, and arguably don't understand the business drivers maybe as to why they need to do this. That's the thing that I find odd, because if you look at the legal sector in itself compared to other sectors, it's probably the sector that gives away value more than any other, and actually, bizarrely enough, has systems, or a lack of systems, that allows their staff to give away that value. And then not only give away that value, but have no way of tracking it. And if a retailer did that, they'd be out of business within weeks. And that's really fascinating. It cuts to the core of the business model. So in terms of, we'll talk about leaking value, well, what do we mean by that? And when we had these conversations early on, firms talked about, well, yeah, we know double discounting goes on and people don't record time, and think, well, okay, double discounting, what does that mean? Well, lawyers put time on the clock and then the partners discount it before they send the bill. Well, we thought, well, no, it's got to be much, much worse than that. So we coined this phrase quintuple discounting, which is the 5 ways in which every lawyer in every law firm every day discounts value. And that's quite damning to say that, but it's true. So how can we help that? How can we put something in there to at least track that and hopefully reduce it and maybe even mitigate it altogether? So let's just rattle through what they are. So that the first one is people just don't record their activity. They don't record their time, and that goes on. Whether it's literally just a 5-minute interaction with a client that they forget to record because they're walking home or whatever, it goes on to different quantums through the business. The second one is that when they do record activity, they get it wrong. So they either over-record or under-record that time for that activity. The third one is then, before they finalise their timesheet, they then discount it back. And this is a big problem. And I'll talk in a minute about severing the tie of capture and billing, because that's a big thing to note. But that third point around discounting the timesheet, totally off your own back, because gosh, the client won't take that. That looks too high. I'm going to knock a bit off. And then maybe the partner, when they're doing the invoicing roll up, looks at it in the round and says, actually, yeah, that's still a little bit high. We're going to knock off some more. But they have no idea that those 3 or 4 levels prior have already happened. So again, they're running blind to that data. And then lastly, what I call the sort of point of sale discount, number 5, is the client intake of breath. And gosh, let's knock a bit off, shall we? Because that's a little bit more than we thought we were going to pay. And we see that as being circa 5% of turnover for a law firm. Just that one there, just the fifth one. 5% of turnover gone. And that's substantial. We talk about firms needing to enhance the way they think about time recording. And I think the analogy that I would use is when a lawyer is recording time, they typically are thinking, I'm going to record 1 hour of time to bill to this client. So in essence, I'm billing 1 hour to this client. Submit. And I think that's part of the problem. That helps them hit their billable target for that day or whatever. But actually, I think what's important is for them to do what we believe is right, and is to say, I'm capturing 1.5 hours of activity as a cost against that client. You see, the billing process is a whole different thing. And we don't do that. That's not what Rekoop isn't about billing. But with reference to time capture, I think firms need to be very brutal about severing that tie between time capture and billing. They are two different things. And as soon as you do that, it's almost like a huge sigh of relief, because you just can let the fee earner capture their cost, capture the time against activities and projects and whatever it is they're doing. Even non-billable time, because that's important too. There's examples where I've been into firms and they say, well, we have a business development team and they do business development, and then when we look at the data, we see that a huge percentage of time is spent by lawyers' so-called business development. And they say, well, why have we got business development people if our lawyers are spending all this time? But it's often padding time, to put in. And I think it's things like this where you're looking at time in the round as a capturing of cost. That's a very powerful conversation. Billing that time is a separate thing. As soon as firms can sever that tie, they'll be in a much more positive position to know what the hell is going on, and then how we can then manipulate that data. And one of the things we see, if you're capturing all the time as a cost, you are going to capture more time. So our systems are going to capture the more time. Let aside the fact that the fee earners themselves, now that they don't have this burden about thinking of billing when they're capturing their time, they're thinking of capturing it as a cost. So it's easier for them to do, but the systems will. So if they're in the office for 9.5 hours, we're going to have 9.5 hours of data. It's that simple. So one of the pushbacks is we get from partners in firms is, well, that's just going to drive up our write-offs, because we're going to have all this extra time. We're not going to be able to bill it, are we? So we're just going to have to write it off. And we don't like write-offs here because that's not a good thing. Well, again, let's challenge that as a concept. It is a good thing, and that's part of the shift of mindset, that it is a good thing, and we need to understand that as a data set. It's not a bad thing to have that data set there. Let's get a holistic picture of what's going on, and if it leads to more write-offs, it's a separate conversation. It's like worrying about billing at the point you capture time. If you start doing that, it enhances the problems down the line.